Hey, everybody, and happy Monday to you. I'm really proud to be bringing you today's Monday Mindshift. And, the moment that we resign or refuse to resign ourselves to being victims of the status quo, we reclaim sovereign power that can never truly belong to institutions or governments or other groups that oppress us. Welcome to another installment of A Year of Thinking Magically. We invite you to join us on a thoughtful journey every day, Monday through Friday, toward reclaiming our power, our personal power, to create a more magical, more fulfilling, and healthier experience of life. I'm your host, John Michael Salvato. For those who don't know me, for those who do know me, I want to thank you for all of your well wishes as I was in intensive care last week and am clearly doing much better this week. The seizures are now medically controlled, and I'm feeling terrific. And I'm going to be with you every weekday, as I said, Monday through Friday, to share with you one mind shift, one way in which I'm committed to changing my mindset that particular day in hopes that it inspires you to find a way or a place in which you can shift your own. More on that when we get back right after this. And we're back. Somebody once said that the day that we as a people hand over our right to govern ourselves is the day we become a resig-nation. And as cheesy as that might sound, I decided that for a number of reasons, that's going to be my mind shift for today. It's no secret that there are a lot of people around the world who are deeply disgusted by what they saw happen this past week and over the past 5 weeks when the person responsible for inciting and assembling and directing a violent and deadly insurrection upon the US seat of government was acquitted by over 47% of those senators who were themselves the victims and the targets of that violence sitting at the scene of the crime. The world has a right to be perplexed, a right to be disgusted and ashamed and concerned at our government's behavior. But this is a story that's only just begun, not by any means one that is finished. And so I want to bring that to you first today. And so I kept quiet through the weekend, allowing space for those who may be less informed or less educated about how the process is meant to unfold to express their rage, to express their disgust and their disappointment, because I too was disgusted and wholly unsurprised by what we saw happen. And because I understood that at times when our country has faced some of the darkest and most profound threats, has always been the time when the true source of power and authority, the people, have stepped up and affected real change, lasting change. And so I knew that resigning ourselves to the whims of a broken system of government, as indeed I believe happens when you have a limited two-party system, can often be the risk that exists, forcing people to eventually have to choose from a binary choice between two constricted ideologies, put us in peril, especially when one of those two parties become antithetical to the founder's vision for our constitutional democracy itself. And so today's mind shift was to state that I will not allow this to become a resignation on my watch, and I hope you won't either. And like so many others who see the power, the potential, and the magic that comes from when people stand up for their founder's vision and move forward toward a more perfect union, a vision which includes and calls us to reconcile the fact that our union has never been even close to perfect. We strive to become more perfect, and that our union as it stands was in fact built on the backs of the enslaved, the marginalized, and the impoverished, but we can choose to stand in our power and to say that this is enough. And that's where the transformative change, the accountability, And yeah, the justice will be won for the American people, indeed, for people around the world who are battling oppression and racism, homophobia, intolerance, xenophobia, and so many other injustices. So I sat at my desk this morning, getting ready to shoot this morning's Mindshift video, and I decided to check my email while I finished my cup of coffee. And immediately there was confirmation that my topic for the day was indeed timely and on point, as someone whom I both deeply admire and respect as a sibling at arms. A member of my tribe, Pennsylvania House member Brian Sims, announced that he would be stepping up from his leadership in our state legislature to run for lieutenant governor for the Commonwealth. And I just couldn't help but say, that's what it looks like when those people who recognize that the power is always with the people, reclaim that power and understand that institutions will never hold any power that's not only temporarily entrusted to them by the people they represent. That's what happens when those kinds of people, real leaders, respond to the kind of miscarriage of justice we saw in the impeachment trial of Donald Trump, the twice impeached and forever disgraced former occupant of the Oval Office. And Brian Sims can serve to inspire each of us today, in that he's proven himself for years to have faithfully upheld the oath that he took that resulted in our entrusting him with the people's power in his district in Philadelphia. Because he's always understood that power was always and forever ours, that the voice he raised in the Pennsylvania House was our voice, and that the benefactors of his work was not ever to be himself alone, but every Pennsylvanian who elected him. So what would happen if, in addition to making the decision to support Brian Sims' bid for lieutenant governor, we also decided that it was time to reclaim our voice and our power? What kind of magical transformation in our personal lives and the lives of those around us could we effect if we stopped waiting for governments to address the issues of social justice, food insecurity, financial inequity, and suffering of all kinds in our communities, and instead we rallied around community organizers, neighbors, and even our own families to ask what we can do with our sovereign power to make this a more equitable and just world. As an early signer of the Charter for Compassion, as many of you know, I've always believed that the moment we choose to honor and respect the rights of others to speak their truth in a way that honors the inviolable sanctity of every person's experience, every person's journey, and their personal stories, we begin to come more fully into our own power, more authentically. And so today I challenge you to choose, as Brian Sims has demonstrated over the years throughout his career, to take the reins and do what you can to serve the communities in which you find yourself. And it all begins when we respect and honor each other's personal story, and when we stand behind those who are stepping up, as Brian Sims is stepping up in his bid for lieutenant governor. So here's a short public service clip from the Charter for Compassion with today's real mind shift, and a little homework for those who are willing to step up and share this message. And if you're a citizen of the Commonwealth or somebody who cares deeply about what real leadership looks like in our country, to consider putting your support behind Brian Sims and others who will ultimately hold Donald Trump and his reckless cabal accountable in state and local jurisdictions for the crimes that he committed and incited across this land over the past 5 years. So here's that public service announcement.
Hi, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm a guy you might know. That's why I've chosen to speak to you today, because you know my story. Well, some of it anyway. But what if you knew everyone's story? What if everyone on the planet was familiar to everyone else? The Charter for Compassion wants to find out. They're asking you to tell them a piece of your story. One moment of compassion that changed your life. Each story will be inspiring in its own right, but all of them together will reveal a world of compassion happening right now in places all over the world, as diverse as Kentucky all the way to Pakistan and everywhere in between. Imagine it. Thousands of stories told one person at a time. Someone once said, "There isn't anyone you couldn't learn to love once you've heard his or her story." Stories make us care. Stories help us understand. Stories breed compassion. And if there's one thing we need right now, in our politics, in our dialogue, in our communities, in our world, it's compassion. Go to charterforcompassion.org and tell your story. And while you're there, affirm the Charter and make a commitment to make the world a more compassionate place. But it's only the first step. Now it's time to practice. It's the only way to a peaceful world. I can't wait to hear your story.